Hello again, this is Joe Azizalahov, the Oriental Carpet book author. Today I would like to discuss very briefly the Nepalese or Tibetan carpets. This was a revolutionary development in the fourth quarter of the 20th century, along with the reproductions of antique rugs, the exact reproductions which are very close to the antique. That's the other development, that's number two. And number three is the Pakistani Peshawar, which is the antique washed look, the pale, which were reproductions of the very pale antique rugs such as ushaks. The Tibetan rug revolution continues to this day. I think it's slowed down a tad bit, along with the exact reproductions of antiques, simply because they tend to be a little more expensive, and we're in a deep recession, and people are moving more towards machine-made and tufted rugs. Nonetheless, my friends that have the Tibetan rug businesses are holding steady in this environment here at this particular time, this tough economic environment. Let's say probably you might say the Tibetan Nepalese rugs fall in between the Pakistani Peshawar, very pale rugs, and the exact reproductions of the antique rugs, somewhere in between. They're absolutely magnificent. It's art underfoot, or perhaps even paintings underfoot. I featured them in both my books, significantly in both books. And I think many of these have antique potential. And the reason is because they basically have all the elements that is required of a rug with antique potential. Namely, the nice thing about the Tibetans, and let me show you a few, are that they have the good weave generally, very good wool, sometimes silk, which is a plus, and a nice soft patina, a very good wash generally speaking. So, in other words, it has all the fundamentals that we look for in a carpet. These are mostly modern designs. They're abstracts. We might call it abstract art underfoot. I've even known people who put them on the walls. They have stapled them onto the walls simply because they say that they can't find a piece of modern art that size for that price. So, and they're not very heavy, generally speaking. They're a little bit delicate, similar to the Peshawars from Pakistan. That's why I'm going to go into carpet care, which is very, very important for the preservation of these rugs. Rug padding and rotation and so forth. We'll go into that shortly. So, now, when investing in Pakistani Peshawar rugs, I always try to get my clients through my brokerage. I have a brokerage service here in central New Jersey. I always try to encourage my clients to buy the best that they can afford, simply because I think with the higher knottage, the higher knot count, and the very, very good wool, and then you have some silk, so you have also very beautiful rugs. Many of them have a rather short nap, or a short pile, which is characteristic of finer rugs with finer weaves. So if you can get a Nepalese rug with a finer weave, that is generally a plus. It's not absolutely necessary, because there's some magnificent Nepalese Tibetans that are actually not too finely woven. But I know my clients in the past, and I've again sold many, many Nepalese rugs. They're very, very happy with them, and they really love them. Let me show you a few. Here's one that was featured in my second book. I actually put it on the back cover, more of a classic type. And then I have many plates. I mean, the inventiveness of these is as far as really the eye can do. Absolutely unending and unlimited potential. These are the more Tibetan type. more of the original Tibetan. a little bit more of the original Tibetan, I believe. Again, fabulous, fabulous wool. Excellent dyes. Usually chrome dyes, but excellent, excellent dyes. Now, I think these rugs may very well have a future as collectibles. And the criteria that I use is basically if you can get a really, really beautiful one that's anonymous, we don't even know where it was made or who it was made or how it was purchased, but if it's really drop-dead gorgeous, that will have potential in my opinion, provided again that it has all the good qualities that I mentioned, the workmanship, the dyes, the weave, the finish, and so forth. I also recommend that very often value is added to these rugs by certain workshops or companies that are very prestigious. I'm not here to endorse any company in particular, but there are companies that are prestigious rug houses which have been making these rugs for many years, and these rugs perhaps have greater potential for collectability. You should get some documentation if you buy these rugs. They tend to be a little more money from the established rug producers of Tibetan Nepalese rugs. If you can get some documentation, I normally, when I sell these, I give my own independent documentation, particularly when they're bought from prestigious rug manufacturers, independent. They have what I call the kind of pedigree of the workshop or the company pedigree. The company gives the pedigree to the carpet and adds the value and adds to collectability. But it has to. You have to have records that it's actually demonstrably from these high-level companies and these important companies at this particular time. Also, another factor for collectability would be that they're used that they were actually designed by famous designers, and many designers are now getting into this. I mean, just to mention a few, Calvin Klein, Martha Stewart, but there are many other excellent designers that are doing unbelievably beautiful work in the Nepalese and Tibetan, Nepalese-Tibetan type rugs. I think that that's a good, that's also would have perhaps better potential for collectability. Again, there'll be probably a little bit of a premium on them simply because these designers are, you know, hired out to make these designs and so forth. So and also they're superb at what they do. So I think it's a very good time to invest in Nepalese rugs now. The market is down, and you know, there are a lot of good values out there. Thank you again for your time.